Hi, and welcome back to our podcast, Two and a Half Brain Cells. We are back and better than ever with stuff that is probably not worth listening to, but we're going to talk about anyway. I am Andrea, recording from my closet.
And I'm Sabia recording from my dorm. And today's topic is the intrinsic value of hype. And when I first heard this, I low key thought it was cap. I was like, no, this isn't real. But basically, Hassan Minaj was on Full Size Run, which is a sneaker show. And they were
Wait,
all
I don't know
talking.
who Hassan Minaj is either. You
Okay,
gotta like step back.
okay, so he's a comedian, and he has the show. Well, he had the show, The Patriot Act. It just got canceled.
Mm.
But he's funny. He's a POC woke, pretty intelligent individual, and I was kind of surprised to hear him say this because he has so many like hypebeast shoes, and I see in his wardrobe. I know he drops a lot of money on shoes, but he was on this sneaker show, and he was talking about this episode he did for his own show, and he broke down like the intrinsic value of hype. And so I thought this was really interesting because I was like, first of all, man, like you are sitting there wearing like $300 sneakers. You can't tell me that like you don't believe in this. And so basically the entire uh, episode, they were talking about like do these shoes really have value? Like what is this value? How did it get this value? How are people dropping this kind of value on the sneakers? So I thought that'd be really interesting for today because it's more than just sneakers. At this point it's kind of like everything. And so I guess to start off though, to give some examples. One of the biggest brands, Supreme.
Hmm.
Andre, you've heard of Supreme, right?
Yeah, like white
Okay.
guys love that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
from,
And that's
Valencia.
right. And it's interesting, right? Because Supreme is this tiny little red box. That's their logo. And they put it on crappy t-shirts and they'll sell for like $500. And no one really knows how that happens, right? Like how does a brand that came from nowhere manage to have such intrinsic value that kids were willing to drop that much on a t-shirt? So, recently, one of the biggest moments of like how did
Hmm.
this happen was everyone knows like Nike Air Force Ones. They became super popular like last year. They were originally like $90. I think in their like peak they were like a 130 maybe, but they're known to be around $90. So in like January, February last year, I think, Supreme released their Air Force One. It is an exact copy of the original shoe that keep in mind was $90, but they put their logo like so tiny on the side of the shoe. It's literally smaller than the Nike logo itself. And do you want to guess how much the shoe is going for right now?
$500?
Yeah, it fluctuates
Oh my
between
God.
300 and $600.
But are the shoes good quality?
They're the exact same quality you could buy for $90, but because Supreme is on it, the kids are willing to pay like almost $500 more.
Okay, you know what this makes me think of? So I'm I just finished a book called Americana by
Mhm.
Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and she's like a Nigerian author. I'm sure you've heard like one of her speeches or TED Talks or something. I think she was sampled in like a Beyonce song, like we raise women to see other women's competition, right? Yeah, you know which one it was. It was like one of the Beyonce songs. But anyways, she's this really famous like author and speaker, and I like love her work. And it was basically in this book, it was about like a woman who grew up in Nigeria and moved to America and then moved back to Nigeria. And she was talking about like why do they price the houses like so absurdly like when she moved back, and she was like, why can't I get a place for cheap? I think that's what was happening at this point in the novel. But anyways, she's having a conversation with this guy who's like a real estate developer, and he basically says that when he started out in the game, he was thinking of just selling the like places or like the flats they called them for like a fair price. And one of his friends that was already in the industry was like, no, because you're not selling to like average middle class Nigerians. You're selling to like expats that are like wealthy and have a lot of money to drop, and they're not going to buy regular priced flats. Double the price. So he doubled the price, and all of a sudden he got all this business. And it was supposed to be commentary on how like in the developing Nigerian economy, the people that are like at the very top want to be rich just for the sake of being rich, so that they can say like, oh, I spent so much on my flat, or I spent so much on my car, even if that's not really what it's worth. Like in America, we're at the place in our like culture and our economy where people are, I guess obviously not in the example of hype, but people are not ashamed to be interested in like getting a good deal or getting a bargain or getting a cheaper price, right? But if you're at like for example, I guess in like Nigeria, which politically and historically was like a developing economy, and they just start to like build their own country's wealth, the people that are newly like new money at like at the top of the economy want to like flex that. They're not interested in like bargaining. And so really they're not buying these flats for double the price because they're higher quality. They're just buying it for the hype.
Yeah, and something interesting you mentioned was so originally he was going to sell the flats for cheap and then he doubled the price. It's
Mm-hmm.
interesting that so with the sneakers and stuff, if you wanted to get a pair of like Jordans and originally they're $130, everyone goes for them. But the second a shoe is like $1,000, it only a certain amount of people can afford it, right? But the problem is kids who, probably work a minimum wage job are going to spend all of their paycheck on those shoes, even though they're catered for rich people just because of hype. And so it's kind of sad that, like, yeah, the market is catered towards the rich, but then the middle class also wants to have that life too. And it's really unfair.
Okay, speak for yourself because I never once spent my minimum wage 11.50 an hour
Are,
chicken paycheck on brand name shoes. Although I did have a friend who one summer worked at like a flame broiler or something. I don't know. She worked like a like you know, service
mhm.
fast food job. And the whole summer she just saved for a pair of Gucci slides and she spent her whole summer's paychecks on Gucci slides.
So yeah, I guess keep in mind, like, you're not a white boy who's like interested in Supreme, but if you were, I can imagine like you would spend your summer working, and instead of putting that money towards something that matters, you're gonna put it on a sneaker. And like, I'm kind of a hypocrite because I also do this, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you have to keep in mind with sneakers, the biggest problem is when Michael Jordan, like, he has his Air Jordans, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have hundreds of the like shoes, like different types, different colors, and they're catering towards young black Americans because those are the people who are buying their shoes. But when you think about it, like, they're also the ones who have to work minimum wage jobs to pay the bills. But then because Michael Jordan released these shoes, they're going to spend their entire paycheck on shoes instead of necessities. And it's not their fault. It's almost as if like that's what's expected. Like, okay, you play
Okay, well
basketball? Well,
that's a whole different issue of like white people co-opting black
yeah,
fashion, but we can
right.
get into that like another day.
Yeah.
Um
But it's interesting, right? And like there's companies like Off-White. Have you heard of them?
oh yeah, you told me they put like an orange like zip tie on their sneakers and then like
Yes.
marked it up like 1,000%.
So he's known. I forget his last name, but his first name's Virgil. That's what we'll call him for now. I mean, he's kind of like a Kanye West. I think he has some music, but he has this brand now, and he's known for his like he calls it construction vibes, and so all his clothes are very
What?
industrial. He has rings that are like bolts. They look like bolts, like those things you put on a screw, like a bolt. And he sells them for like $1,000. He released binder clips. You know what a binder clip is? That thing you put on papers.
Oh,
It's
my family uses them to close chip bags.
Yes, okay. He painted one neon yellow, wrote Off-White on it. Guess how much it is?
Dude, freaking like $1 million. I don't know.
It's about $300. It's ridiculous, right? Like, why
Wait,
would
for
you
binder
spend
clips?
for
Not
a
even like a
binder clip?
fashion thing. Was it
No,
on
no,
like
just
a
a
zipper of
bind.
a jacket?
No, it is a straight up binder clip. You can put it on your purse if you want, I guess. But that is what I'm talking about. It's ridiculous, right? But there is some kid who is watching influencers and celebrities, wear this stuff, and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna waste all my money on it too." And the problem is, like, a celebrity can afford to do that because they're making millions, and chances are it was sent to them for free. The problem is they're like directly influencing kids who don't have that money, and then they're suddenly following this hype and they're buying stuff they can't afford. I think it like makes
Do you think that the hype target demographic is, or like not target, but the primary demographic is young white kids?
not even white. I think it's just young kids. I think the
Okay,
kids, because I think it's just kids who don't know any better. I think they're
because I
targeting
don't
kids
see
who
any like
they
rational adults
right.
buying name brand. It reminds me of the time, like one time for a family reunion. Okay, so some background like information is I have an uncle who works like as like a truck driver basically. And right now I think he's working as like the like a trash truck pickup driver. I don't even know what the name for that occupation is called. And also like transporting like to the like the actual landfills in like our county and kind of like outside of the county too. And he has like a special work uniform that he has to wear, you know, like the neon vest so that he doesn't get spotted or hit
Yeah.
or whatever. And like um his like work boots, which are obviously heavy duty work boots that kind of look like construction boots. And my cousin, so obviously his daughter, one time came to the carne asada, you know, the whole family big Mexican gathering, right? Wearing Tim's and like ripped
Hmm.
jeans because it was like fashionable at the, I guess it's like still fashionable, but um and she like looked cute, like she looked fine, and everybody was making fun of her like, why are you wearing your dad's work outfit?
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, it's just weird how certain things become fashionable like outside of their practical use. Like Nike and like AF1s
Hmm.
and like Jordans are like basketball shoes. Like they're meant to be playing the sport
Yeah.
of basketball. And then they became fashionable as like streetwear, or like yoga pants were made for yoga. And then in like the early
Hmm.
2000s, I think when like Britney Spears or something wore them, then like suddenly they were like trendy, or like Tim's or like Doc Martens or combat boots. Dude,
Right.
combat boots are ugly, but now because everybody wears them, they're not ugly anymore. So
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there. I think it was Bethany Moda. I blame her.
But yeah, I totally think that's like, I think it's definitely companies who send things out to celebrities. And these celebrities, even if they are paying, it means nothing to them, right? They can afford to drop $1,000 on something. I think the problem is like when people are influenced by it, it's just like it's crazy that like people are willing to drop that much for
Do
anything.
you think that this is a phenomenon of like social media and like internet marketing? Like did what I'm
Definitely.
asking is, did influencers exist like um pre MySpace slash Facebook?
So yeah, I think like I mean when I was growing
Like
up, like
did
early
Elvis get
2000s,
sponsorships?
probably because like what I was gonna say was early 2000s. I remember my dad would watch like football and basketball and stuff, and he was obsessed with those athletes. And even my like friends growing up would watch like a basketball player on the TV, and whatever shoes he was wearing, you had to have those shoes. And I
Mm.
think it just transferred from like seeing them on TV or seeing like ads on TV to now it being on your Instagram feed or I don't know, like on yeah, like your so like your
What about
influencers on social
before
media.
TV? What about like radio? No, no, no. Let's go back even further. Do you think that the lords in like feudal
Yes.
Europe were influencers?
Okay, this is kind of a dark, like this is a completely like 180 of what we were
Okay,
talking about.
okay, go for
But
it.
the rich in so my mom's from Pakistan, and
Hmm.
she used to tell me that the rich people would stay indoors all day, and so their skin would be lighter. And so if you were wealthy or like up in the elite class, you would have light skin. And if you were a working like family, you would have darker skin because you worked out in the fields. And so it was popular to have light skin because if you had light skin, then you were considered like the elite. So everyone would try to have light skin. They would bleach their skin, or they would use like products to get their skin lighter. And that's like the same idea here, right? You're wearing shoes because a celebrity wore it. They would change the color of their skin to match the elite in their society. And so
That's really
yeah,
interesting because I always thought that skin bleaching creams were a product of like British colonization or like Spanish colonization of like
I think I think it
indigenous
was a
Asian and
little.
African lands, right? But this also makes sense. So what we've moved is from a discussion of like social media to like classism
Yeah,
and
I know.
like
I
low
think
key
definitely.
semio cap.
Yeah, Loki. But like I think it definitely was influenced by European like people coming into their country. But I think it's always been this idea of like because even then the Europeans didn't work in the fields, right? They were still the light like people, the ideal beauty.
Yeah, but they
It
also
just
didn't have like the
changed.
DNA for melanin, so you know.
Yeah. Well,
Also, I low key remember having this discussion in econ, right? And this is part of the reason why we think econ is a hoax, is because there's all these equations, right? That's like when the price goes up and this goes down and demand and supply and whatnot. But like it doesn't account for other factors I'm sure everybody's heard of like how grocery stores put the most expensive products at eye level, and then they put like the
Right.
generic brands at the very top and the very bottom. So people are inclined to just grab what's like right in front of them off the shelf, and only the people that are like
Mhm.
looking for a discount or like looking for a bargain will like look up and down and get like the cheaper things. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't account when we're taking things like price or demand or choice or
Yeah.
whatever. Or like obviously like in micro, right, we learn the rule that's, I don't know anything about macroeconomics, but we learned about, actually I don't know anything about micro either, but let's just pretend that I do for the sake of the podcast. It was like, if the cereal gets cheaper, you like buy more of it because you can afford, like
Yeah.
your buying power increases because you can afford more boxes of cereal for the same amount of money that you already have. But like, for example, if you're like a person that buys into hype, is gonna want to buy these like $300 Gucci slides instead of the $15 slides at Ross, dress for
Right.
less, or like Marshalls, because even though they might be the same quality, one of them gives the like illusion of like, I don't want to say
Yeah.
class
No,
mobility, but like it it adds, being expensive gives it added value, which works directly against like all of the formulas that we learned.
so what's really interesting is I remember saying this to my
Hmm.
econ teacher. I remember being like,
I
this
Yeah, I
doesn't make
remember.
sense. And I remember getting really mad because I was like, look, look, logically, any person goes to a store and sees that cereal's on sale, you are not going to go buy out the store's quantity of cereal. Like, it does not make sense. And he was like, no, Sabia, you're telling me, like, if there's a sale, you're not going to buy more? And I'm like, I'm not going to buy more than I need. Like, that's a
Okay,
ridiculous argument.
okay, listen. My brown parents, you know how many boxes of cereal we have in the cupboard at all times? I'm guessing right now at least 10 for no reason other than that they were on sale at Costco. And my dad just
Okay, so
had to buy like 10 boxes of cereal. And you know what? The kicker is that we don't even eat cereal. I eat oatmeal because I can't have gluten. We
so
just
what's
buy it
in,
because it's on clearance.
What's
So,
interesting though is like that furthers the point though, right? Like you can't generalize econ into equations because let's say you're looking at strawberries, you're not going to buy 10 packs of strawberries just because they're on sale because they're going
no,
to go
my
bad.
parents will do that. And they'll be like, "We're eating only strawberries for the next week."
Okay, well,
But
with the exception of Andrea's
I think that's
parents.
like a psychological effect of the trauma of like abject poverty and like surviving like famine. So like
Yes.
I think I'm
So
just gonna count my parents as like exceptions because
true. Okay.
we are like
So,
bargain kings and queens here.
but I
So
mean, back to the point of like econ or whatever,
mhm.
I genuinely find there's no way that anything we learned in econ is applicable to the real world. And that's what's so frustrating, right? Because he made us learn.
Okay, maybe
I,
game theory.
I don't even remember that because I was during quarantine. But
Oh.
I'm just saying, like, most of the stuff that went to its supply and demand,
Hmm.
that is not real. It doesn't work in the real world. And he'd always be like, assuming it was a perfect market. And I'm like, no, but there's never a perfect market, so why are we learning this? But anyway, moving on from econ, I think what something interesting you mentioned was the peanut butter thing, right? If it there's, or did you say peanut butter? I think you said something and it caught
Yeah,
my mind in peanut butter.
it was like
That
peanut
like,
butter and its alternative. So like if peanut butter
right,
gets more expensive, people are gonna buy like almond butter or something.
right. So let's say for like growing up for me, I remember loving like peanut butter sandwiches. That's all I would eat. And my mom would
Oh,
always
you're
say,
so
Sabia, the like,
Americanized.
I know. She'd be like, my mom would always say to me at the grocery store, like, there's Skippy peanut butter and then the like, store brand. And
Hmm.
I remember her saying to me, they taste exactly the same. Let's get the store brand one. And I'd always be like, no, I want the Skippy one because that was the one I used to see on TV. That was the one all my friends had. So I was like, no, I want that one. And my mom would pay the extra dollar for me to have this thing that tasted exactly like the one that was a dollar less. And that's originally for me, like that's where hype starts. Like those TV ads. Like I remember wanting a like Lunchables or whatever because I used to see ads about it, but it was disgusting. But because of the hype around it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna try that. But it was
Okay,
disgusting.
we clearly, I think the reason we have such like fundamental differing like ideas about hype and like making like financial decisions is because of like the differences in our upbringing. Like if I ever told my mom I wanted the like fancy brand instead of the generic brand, she'd be like, "No." And then we would simply buy the generic brand and just go home with that. Like I didn't get a choice there. Or like I also remember asking my parents for Lunchables and they were like, "But there's fried rice at home."
Well, you weren't missing out on much because they were disgusting. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean,
I
I
mean, I can
agree.
imagine, but like yeah, we never got like the like fancier or whatever just because it was an ad. And like every time we go to Costco still, or we go to like CVS or whatever, even though like theoretically we could afford buying like the nicer brand. Like I said, I think it's just like a product of my parents' upbringing that we like always have, like the discount pamphlet or whatever.
Mhm.
I don't even know what it's called, the flyer. And we like
Yeah.
circle all the things that we need that also happens to be on sale, and we like only get that.
I mean, I remember doing that too, definitely. I just think I
Hmm.
was like a spoiled, like, I mean, I definitely like fought for a lot because I was the middle child and I needed attention. But I mean, I think that's like a similar experience. I just think I feel like I've always been into like what's in because I was like I didn't want to stand out because like growing up I
Hmm.
was always like different because I was growing up in like suburban Boston as like a brown kid. There was no other brown kids.
Okay, but like
So
I grew up in suburban Newbury Park as a brown kid.
you're telling me you were the only brown kid in your school because I was.
That's not true. Okay, my friend group in elementary school was like a black girl, like girl from Israel. I don't know if Israeli is correct, but so I'll just say girl from Israel, like a Dominican girl, and like two
Okay,
Indian
so
girls. And we
when
were
I
like the
was growing
only
up,
brown kids in like the whole grade. And that
okay,
was
so
like
when I was
my whole
growing
friend
up,
group.
there was one other girl and she was Brazilian
Hmm.
and she wasn't friends with me. Like we did not get along really.
Oh, that's so
And
sad.
so and so there was another girl who was like Indian. I think she joined school a little later. I did not like her. And so the thing was there was no one around me that was like me that I was friends with. All my friends were white. And so I was already different. So I was like, all right, if everyone else is getting Lunchables and peanut butter and jelly, I'm going to get that too because I wanted to fit in. And so I feel like that's kind of where hype starts too, right? It's in your own social groups.
Hmm.
Like for me, if I saw all my friends wearing something, the first instinct that comes to mind, especially when I was younger, was, oh, I'm gonna get that too. Now I'm like out of that. Like I definitely like once I turned like
Okay,
14, I
but
stopped doing that.
listen, did your parents ever let you wear Justice? Because mine did not. Absolutely not.
No,
We wore hand-me-downs. It was like no. I think
no,
I
I
might have
don't.
had like one pair of like pants or something, but they were like
You
tank tops in
know,
elementary
see,
school. Mm-mm.
yeah, I mean that's definitely a part of hype though, right? Like Justice was this like weird cultish behavior. We were all
Yeah.
shopping at Justice because we all thought it was so cool. Now we're over it. But that was
Hmm.
a like I think right now for little kids like JoJo Siwa, she is their hype queen. Like anything
Dude,
JoJo, their
I have
kids
a
wear it.
story about okay, Loki, I'm also JoJo Siwa stan, but like for different reasons. But my sister is like at that age where she's like she loves JoJo Siwa and like unironically, and my mom wanted like she asked my mom over and over and over if she could go to Justice and get like a JoJo Siwa bow because she wanted to wear like her hair in the side ponytail just like JoJo Siwa and like the big bow and everything. And my mom took her to Justice, looked at the bows, saw the price. I think it was like $15 for a bow, and it's literally
Mhm.
just a giant hair ribbon, and said, absolutely not. And grabbed my sister's hand, walked out of the store, and took my sister home without a bow. And she made her like a homemade one, but it kind of looked, no, it didn't. Who were we kidding? It like did not look the same. And my mom was like, see, like, here's the bow that you wanted. But it was like, for my sister, it was like she wanted the bow that said like JoJo Siwa on the tag.
She like it didn't
Even
really
though
look
they
like
were
it.
the exact same bow, one of them had the JoJo Siwa label on them and the other one didn't. And so my sister was like, just screw it. Like, I'm obviously not getting a JoJo Siwa bow.
Mhm.
That is hype. That is hype.
Yeah, yeah. No, JoJo Siwa is. I mean, you have to respect the fact that she was nobody, and within a couple years, she is the biggest hit, and probably makes millions of dollars off little kids now. And I respect it because those little kids like love her, they adore her, and it's crazy. Like she is their,
Hmm.
I don't know, like Taylor
Yeah, for
Swift.
sure. What else was I gonna say? Oh,
I feel like
I had a thought
when I
really
was growing
quickly
up, I
about
remember
what is
Zigs,
that?
Reebok Zigs.
What are Reebok
Okay,
Zigs?
Reebok Zigs. They're like so when I was in Boston, I remember everyone had them, and there were these black shoes. And on the bottom, there was like a little squiggly line on the shoe, and you could get whatever color you wanted, red, blue, orange. And that was the biggest deal. Like
I'm
if you had
Googling
Zigs,
this
you
right
were
now.
cool. And so everyone I knew had Zigs. And I remember my dad bought me a pair, and he was, yeah, look at a picture. I remember I had pink ones, and my dad bought me a pair, and he was like, Sevilla, learn to tie your shoes. Like I'm not buying you this pair of shoes if you are gonna mess up the laces. And I was like, all right. If you know me, you know that I didn't learn to tie my shoes until I was 16. I used to tuck them into the side of the shoe because I wasn't ready for laces.
Hmm.
But I bought them anyway
These
because
look
I desperately
so
wanted to
weird.
fit in. Did you find
I
a
have
picture?
never seen these in my life.
They were the thing. Are you kidding me? This was it. Like when I was
Who
younger,
wore
like these were
these?
the coolest shoe. In my
They look
school, like I
like
remember everyone being obsessed
these are
with this
worse than
shoe.
Yeezys.
I know, but this was like everyone was obsessed with this shoe. And this probably like like streamlined me into the world of sneakers because I remember having cool
Hmm.
shoes.
Okay. Well, Sabia, your mic is off.
I know. I was moving. I didn't want to get caught on the
Oh,
mic.
okay. Um, oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I remember a time when I was like really excited to bring my lunch to school, and like, remember I clearly did not bring like Lunchables, right? I had my little like ethnic lunch, and I sat next to this girl, and she told me that my lunch looked like vomit, and I was like so upset. I like went home crying, and I was like, Rachel said my lunch looked
Yeah.
like vomit.
And so what did you do the next day? Did you bring that same meal?
Yes, because I did not have a
Yeah.
choice.
Okay, so I didn't have a choice either. I just wouldn't eat. I remember my mom used to pack me like an egg sandwich like every day. And people used to say it smells, and I was like, all right, well, because my mom worked, and so she would get up in the morning to make me the sandwich. So I was like, well, I'm gonna eat it because she worked hard to like make me this meal. But I
Mm-hmm.
literally would wait until lunch was over, and I'd eat it at recess because I everyone said it smelled bad. So I was like, all right, forget this. And I just remember being
Okay,
so
so I think
embarrassed.
this is less of a conversation about hype and more of a conversation about like conformity and
It's
like
both.
the desire to conform.
I think
Also,
hype is
I
the desire to
googled hype
conform.
earlier and it said like give me a second. Oh, it's like an energy drink. And I
What?
thought you wanted to talk. It says Hype Energy Drinks has been an official sponsor of Formula 1 racing. So I thought you wanted to talk about F1 racing because I know you're into
Oh my
that.
gosh, that's so funny. No, I did not know this was a drink. I've never heard of this.
But I'm not big on energy drinks, right? Because I can't have caffeine.
Yeah.
I
Oh
saw
my
a
god.
TikTok
Okay.
though that was funny that it was like girls who have a caffeine addiction and need to let everybody know, and it like made me think of you.
I used to come to school every day with an iced coffee, like ever since sophomore year. And I remember like people like okay, I don't think Olivia will mind if I tell this story, so I'm gonna tell it. One time, Olivia was like working on a chem lab like all night, and so she comes to school the next day, and I go and see her, and I'm like, "Oh hey, how are you?" She goes to be, "I'm so tired. I pulled an all-nighter to finish this chem lab,"
Oh my
and I
gosh, I remember
literally
that lab.
she was like, "I'm drinking milk and convincing myself it's coffee." And I was like, "Oh my god, you poor child." I literally gave her my iced coffee. I was like, "You need this more than I do." And that was like literally so funny. That was one of the funnest experiences I've ever had with like
That's really
stressed out
funny.
chem kids and caffeine.
But low key, imagine how much you've spent on coffee over the years. What if you
Okay,
had
so
put that
my
all into a retirement account?
so my dad and I actually don't get coffee. Like if we're at home, we don't go out and get coffee anymore. We have a K cup machine, but K cups are bad for the environment. So
Mm-hmm.
we bought reusable. Oh no, we bought. Sorry, what's that thing called? Like
Like
a
ground
coffee
coffee?
filter? No, like
Oh
a
yeah,
coffee
yeah.
filter, and then coffee grounds. And
Oh,
now we can
discount
use
queen.
that. Yes, now we can use that in the K cup machine, and it works exactly the same, and it's so much better for the environment because we can buy like 50 for like $2, like 50 of the filters, and
Mm-hmm.
then you're not using any plastic from the Keurig, you're not using a cup from the store, you're not wasting gas to get there. It's literally so convenient.
You know what? I think that the environmentalist movement is truly the thing that's going to be able to defeat hype. Like people are willing to
True.
put away like hype and fast fashion and like looking cool in the name of like reduce, reuse, recycle. I think that's when hype is really going to be defeated.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good
I don't
point.
really have anything else to add to this podcast discussion, but do you have anything you want to throw in?
uh don't buy Here's my advice.
Mm-hmm.
Don't buy a sneaker if it's more than $150 because I'm telling you, you're buying into hype. You're not like Oh, I have a lot of sneakers, right? But I only have like 3 pairs that are more than 150.
In
Because I'm
total, how
telling
much do you
you,
think they are?
like all my shoes together, oof,
Mm-hmm.
maybe like over $1,000. Because I have a
Oh
lot
my
of
God.
sneakers. But keep in mind, I take really good care of my sneakers. Like I've had some pairs for like 4 or 5 years, and there's not even a scuff on some of them. So like there are some pairs in there that are like 5 years old. So yeah, maybe I have a lot of shoes, and I spent a lot of money, but they're all in pristine condition. So, but yeah, it's
All
a
right.
problem.
Well, fantastic lesson. I think my takeaway from this discussion is make sure you check the Costco discounts before you go shopping.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
See y'all
Until
next
next time.
episode.